Well, good morning, everyone. So, PragurU, if you haven't heard of them, they're like a conservative group, I guess you can say, that does a lot of information that they're really pro-capitalist, pro-Israel, Christianity, and pro-Western civilization, European civilization, American civilization, blah, 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 blah. There are a lot of stuff that I personally do support. And they recently released a video, of which I will link it in the description, about the rise of the Muslim Brotherhood. Now, a lot of y'all, especially if y'all have been watching people like Benjamin with Sargon Akkad in his second channel, the Thinkery, or Computing Forever, Black Pigeon Speaks, and a lot of those other European YouTubers, you will know for a fact that there is an increasing number of Islam happening in Europe right now. And honestly, I don't know what to think about it. The people, most of Europe, as you know, opened their border and just tons of migrants, refugees just flowed in and they are just refusing to go. Many of them have already built their homes, their families, and they basically set up camp. And we've had tons of European leaders that have came out and basically said, okay, yeah, in a couple years we're probably going to be a Muslim dominant nation. And the thing is, the global left has pretty much championized Islam with their push for diversity and inclusive. Oh, God, you get what I'm saying. Their push for it has basically almost pandered and allowed Islam to get away with so much what they've been getting away with because, oh, we can't call them out because we're racist and we have to pay for the sins of Western imperialism and colonialization and World War One and World War Two and blah 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 blah. I don't know why, but the left has gone just anti-Western civilization, and it's kind of funny because a lot of Islam, like their core beliefs, especially with those like the Muslim Brotherhood and their allies, and those associations such like CARE and the Northern America Islamic, what is it, association or corporation, something like that. Even though those organizations don't, they claim that they have no connection with the Muslim Brotherhood, a lot of their core beliefs and what they want to see in the world is exactly in line with the Muslim Brotherhood. So, from the Muslim Brotherhood's perspective, they're not going to stop these organizations. They're just going to let them continue to spread their work because, they're doing their work for them. Why not? And the thing is, why have a lot of these refugees not gone back? Why have a lot of these migrants not gone back? Well, the very simple and probably easiest answer is because their countries are absolute shitholes. I mean, especially for me, I've been deployed in the Middle East and I've been through parts of that area, and it's pretty bad. I mean, don't get me wrong, each nation has its beauty, and there were some parts of Iraq and Kuwait that was actually quite like, wow, breathtaking. But when you get to the cities and a lot of the villages and everything else, they're shitholes. You can ask any soldier who's been deployed. You'd be driving down the road and there'd just be garbage everywhere on the side of the road because people will just toss it without a side. So, from their perspective, why would they want to go back to a shithole? Because, Europe is clearly better than what they went through. So, why would they want to go back? And for those of you who do live in Western societies and don't understand, here's the best reference that I can give you. So imagine that today, people in America went to a civilization that was like the USS Enterprise D in Star Trek Generations, where you had holodecks, where you were able to basically go anywhere at any time frame at any point that you wanted to. You can create your own visions, your own worlds. You had, what were they called, food dispensers or something like that, where you can just say what you want and it would give it to you, and all this other stuff, space lasers and things like that. If you as a Westerner went to a civilization like that, and then that civilization told you, okay, you need to go back to your home country, why would you want to go back? Here in America, we don't have holodecks. That stuff is, I understand the stuff is sci-fi, it's stuff of fiction, but you gotta imagine if you went to a civilization that was that advanced, or an area that was that advanced, and then you had to go back, you'd probably protest it too, because you would want to stay. And with a lot of the migrants and refugees, that's kind of what they're at right now. They were at places that were just terrible and absolutely hell, and then they go to Europe to where it's like, oh man, this is so nice. This is real nice. Why would they want to go back? That's why so many of them are protesting, and even though a lot of them are refugees, they are playing that refugee card as strongly as possible. And as I said, a lot of the migrants have planted their roots there and they don't want to leave. They do not want to leave, and they're using things as economics as now reasons for refugee status. Like, oh, but our country's so poor, our country has no jobs, I won't be able to support my family, I have to stay here, yada, yada, yada. I get it, but at the same time, you know, economics isn't gonna help. Because if you bring in tons and tons of people from different countries competing for jobs in that country, like look at Europe, or not Europe, look at Britain, for example. It's a very small country compared to the United States. They only have so much that they can provide the people. But the problem is the left, the global left, it's not just in Europe and America, it's the global left. They are catering to these people, and they are making it that they're a victim class, they're a protective class. We can't ask them to go back because it's racist, it's wrong, it's unmoral, and everything else, and blah, 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 blah. As I said, if y'all watched those channels with Sargon Akkad, Black Pigeon Speaks, Computing Forever, you'll know what I'm talking about. And it's happening here in America. And, as many of y'all know, Ilhan Omar, that senator who was a refugee herself, but they ended up staying here, she got elected as a congressman. Or, I'm sorry, congresswoman. And you see what she tweets. She's very anti-American. She's clearly anti-Israel, anti-Christianity, and if she had the power, she probably would fundamentally change America in a Thanos snap. And I'm not lying. But that's the quick version. A lot of these migrants, they love where they're at, and they don't want to go. But the problem is the call from home is very strong. It's very real. So what do? Well, they don't want to return to their home country because it's terrible, so they bring home with them. But the issue is, so here in the West, even though some people would disagree, we do have a separation of church and state. Now, sometimes that line can be very thin. I understand that. I get that. I live here in America. I understand that sometimes, our religious beliefs does get the better of us. What can you do? But in the case of Islam, the church is the government. There is no separation of church and state with Islam. They are the exact same thing. What is written in the Quran is also the laws of the land, as they say constantly, as you hear in their prayers. So when Ilhan Omar got elected, I first said, we'll see. I was talking to somebody, and I said, we'll see. Let's wait and see what happens. Maybe she'll be more, for the Constitution. But clearly she's proven that she's more for her religion than she is the Constitution of the United States. Now, why is that? Well, it's because Islam does not recognize the Constitution of the United States. In fact, Islam doesn't recognize a lot of Western values. In fact, in the video, I encourage y'all to watch this. I really do, and as I said, I will put a link in the description. When you watch this video, you'll understand that yes, this is the Muslim Brotherhood, but this is also the second part of the Quran, because as many people say, I hear the biggest defense that, oh, Islam is very peaceful, it's a very pacifist religion. The first part of the Quran is, but the problem is you get to the second part of the Quran, the age of Muhammad, their prophet, and he completely negates the first half. Now, I'm not painting all of Islam under an umbrella, or at least I'm trying not to. And there are modern Muslims who they just want to live by the first half of the Quran. They don't want to live about the second half. They're not for it. They just don't care for it. They don't want it. But the problem is more and more young Islamists are being radicalized by the second half of the Quran and by organizations such as CARE, the Northern Islamic whatever, and the Muslim Brotherhood. And as you'll find out in the video, if you watch it, the Muslim Brotherhood they're in more areas than you think. and their main goal is to basically convert all the world to Islam, a one world order, one world religion, that being Islam. And since Islam is both church and state, one world religion as well as a one world government, all in one phrase, Islam. Now, I understand for Christians who read the Bible, Renaissance, it does, is it yeah, it talks about how the markings of the end of the world will be, there will be one world religion and one world, government. And even I, as a Christian, have to admit that if Islam does gain global dominance, it does kind of feel like it's the end of the world. But I'm not saying that. I got to make that perfectly clear. I'm not saying Islam is the Antichrist, though it is plainly obvious they are anti-Christianity and anti-Jewish and Israel. Sorry about that. I heard something for a second. But I'm going to use the Muslim Brotherhood and I'm going to compare them to the rise of Hitler. Now, you got to think, Germany was in a state of devastation. They just got done fighting the First World War, and the League of Nations was making Germany pay for everything. So, there was a lot of tension and anger in Germany towards the rest of the world. But the thing is, Hitler was very small. You got to understand, the Nazi Party was very small during the rise of power that led to World War II. But, Hitler came in and he basically helped radicalize a lot of Germany to his beliefs, his values. And the thing is, there were obviously Germans who said, whoa, wait a minute, he's going to lead us to another war. We got to stop him. What did Hitler do? He killed them. Now, I understand Hitler was just one nation in Germany, but you also got to think he also expanded other nations to his power and to his beliefs until he started actually physically conquering. He actually built the old Turkish or old German Empire from World War I, and the League of Nations didn't stop him. So when you compare that to the Muslim Brotherhood, they were formed in 1920. And they had very huge political power in Egypt, but they were destroyed by a coup, as you will learn in the video if you watch it. But the thing is, they used that coup to their advantage. They used that to spread across the world, and now the Muslim Brotherhood is all over the West with representatives. They're all over the Middle East. They're all over Asia. They are all over the world right now. And the reason I'm comparing them to the rise of Hitler is because Hitler was just one man with a very small party of organization. But they were able to transform all of Germany, make it bigger, and then threaten the world. Why can't the Muslim Brotherhood do that? Especially with the organizations like CARE and such who have the exact same ideologies of the Muslim Brotherhood, though they claim they're not in league with them. You see, the Muslim Brotherhood might be a small organization, but if Hitler and his small organization can radicalize a whole nation, you better bet your ass that the Muslim Brotherhood has the exact same power to radicalize the entire world and have the world destroy itself within, which is part of their plan, is to infiltrate Western values and societies and then turn them against each other. I mean, look what's going on in the world with the left. They're more concerned about destroying gender stereotypes and breaking up the family unit and bringing more government power and more government control instead of the individual. And they're more concerned recently about getting rid of rights. Their biggest target is gun rights. The left wants to eliminate gun rights, and the reality is, if they eliminate gun rights, that just opens the door for them to eliminate any other type of rights. To eventually, if it gets to that point, we'll probably see the Constitution just scrapped, because this was written by old white man, and it's outdated and doesn't, reflect our modern beliefs. RIP. It will happen. And the problem is, the left is also catering to organizations like the Muslim Brotherhood and such, because it's almost like the left has chosen their religion, and it's Islam. Now, I understand some of y'all might be rolling your eyes and go, that's retarded. Well, yes, it is, and I don't understand why the Democrats are doing it, or, the global left, because what the left wants, Islam does not. Islam knows for a fact there's only two genders, and Islam is a very strong male-run society. Women almost become like second-class citizens. You have to think about that. But yet the left, they want to it. It almost seems like they want women to replace men. They want to reverse what the gender roles have been for thousands of years, and the left is going as far as to even ignoring biological facts that have been scientifically proven for years. Like example, I saw on Computing Forever, if you Google search like man blank blank blank, it comes up men can get pregnant now and men can have babies now. I don't think that happens. Maybe in The Sims, but it's described as unexplained weight gain, and it's usually with aliens. But the left is going on this, what they believe as a crusade. And organizations that want to form this global Islamic nation or this Islamic world, they're using the left as their ally. Now, you better believe that if these organizations get powerful enough, they will immediately turn on the left. You see, what's happening is they are just using the left. And the left needs to wake up and realize that, because they are not going to stand hand in hand and sing Kumbaya and be all peaceful. No. Because what the left wants, Islam does not. So when that time comes, they will slap the left to the side and say, we don't need you anymore. We're powerful enough to stand on our own. And if they get more political power, and if they get more in political positions, as we've seen in Europe, and as we've seen in parts of America, they will implement their own beliefs, their own laws, and their own culture onto that town, onto that state, or onto that nation. I understand a lot of this probably sounds like fear-mongering or conspiracy theory and everything else, but the thing is, it's happening. It's not fast. It's a very slow and steady growth, but the thing is, Hitler fought in World War I. And it took him that long to get into positions of political power. Let's see, that's like 10, 20. That's close to 30 years that Hitler took to get into the positions that he needed, to get his allies where he needed them, and to change Germany into what he wanted to be. The Muslim Brotherhood and other organizations like them want the exact same thing. It's just, instead of one nation, they're focusing on the whole world. Now, I pray and I hope that their lust for global conversion will be their downfall. And I'm hoping that places like in Europe and here in America, they will wake up eventually and eventually tell Islam to take a hike and go, no, we're not going to convert to your beliefs or your, systems. Yes, we will invite you in and we will gladly have you open arms, but we're not going to convert to your beliefs. This is our beliefs. This is our history, our nation. We like it how it is. Because, what makes a nation? It's borders, a national language, and national icons. Just like here in America, the bald eagle is our national bird. The flag that's hanging up in my front yard is part of American nationalism. But yet, in recent years, what has happened? The left says that the American flag is problematic. Our founders are problematic. The Confederacy is problematic. Our borders, our language is problematic. What does Islam believe? Well, if you watch the video, you'll find out that the Muslim Brotherhood does believe that all of our values, including women's rights, people of color's rights, and no slaves, is problematic. Because no matter what people tell you, Islam does believe in the use of slavery still. And in fact, there's many Islamic nations that still practice slavery. In fact, I didn't know this at the time, but when I was stationed in Kuwait, a lot of our servants that served the soldiers food and such, they were slaves. Now, we couldn't do anything about it because the government had a deal, the government had a deal with, I guess you can say the slave owner, but at the same time, it explained why everyone was so miserable on that post, because they were slaves, and a lot of the time they weren't getting paid, and that's really sad to think. And also, I find it really sad and problematic that, it wasn't just America, it was also British and all of European nations who go to Kuwait to station. We were getting served by slaves, and that's really sad. And at the time I didn't know, but when we got back to the States, my NCO actually explained that to me, and I was like, damn, I didn't know that. I'm sorry, got on a little rant. I do apologize about that. But I'm telling you, Islam is using the left, and they are playing them like a fiddle. And they love the fact that the left has made them a protective and victimized class. They are going to use this just everywhere. Because in public schools, we're seeing, people coming out, and they are very pro-Islam, and they're encouraging students to try it and such. And look, I'm all for trying other cultures. That's what makes separate cultures great. The experience of going there and experiencing a different culture, that's part of the gloriousness of it. But in this case, they're just, I don't know, it feels they're like expanding their beliefs in the school system. And you gotta wonder, how do the Europeans feel? You gotta sit there and think. Their government has essentially opened their borders and allowed these organizations to get into very political positions, key locations. And as you've probably seen with Mr. Benjamin on his Tinkering Sargon Akkad, and even Computing Forever, they'll tell you that the fertility rate of like actual national Irish, British, we'll just say Europeans in general, they're low. While it seems like the Islamic migrants and refugees, their fertility rates are only increasing. And as I said earlier in the video, many European leaders that came out and said, yeah, we're probably going to be a Muslim dominant nation in a while. You have to think, how was that making the Europeans feel? They have had this culture and they've lived this for, that's been their part of their identity. And if you have this giant culture shift to where the British identity is no longer an identity, because a big difference between, we'll say, an American and an Islamist is, Americans are Americans. There is a different type of pride in America that is very unique. Like, you don't see this American pride in European nations and such. And, like, even if you've been watching Sargon for a while, he finally put a British flag hanging up in one of his videos, and he even came out and said that that's kind of, unnormal for British people, because they just don't have that sense of patriotism or nationalism as we do here in America. But, they will come out and say, we are British, or we are French, we are German. With Islam or Muslims, they don't have that sense of identity. They don't say, I am Iraqi, or I am Egyptian, or I am Turkey, or Turkish, my apologies, or I'm Kuwaiti, things like that. They don't have that sense of nationality, because what confines them is they are Muslim, they are Islamic, they follow Allah. That is unique to the Islamic religion. So if you have a cultural shift in Europe, which as many European leaders says is going to happen, for a lot of the national British people, that nationality is probably going to be lost, because Muslims won't have that sense, or Islamics won't have that sense. Now, I could be wrong. They could have that sense, but if you listen to the Muslim Brotherhood, those are just lands for conquering. And the Muslim Brotherhood views America as their holy grail. Like, if they can transform America into a Islamic dominant nation, to them it will be the greatest victory, and it will be written down in the history books forever. And it's not going to be some... I understand, the winners write the history books, and they will make it sound like America was just evil, vile, infidel place until they came in and offered peace through the land in the name of Allah. Allah. Which is untrue. Especially for people who's been across the world. I mean, America, it's pretty damn great compared to a lot of these other nations, even European nations. And for those Europeans, they're going to have to do something if they want their nations to survive. And once again, that's not me fear-mongering. This is me stating the facts. Because when your own nation's leaders is telling you that your nation is going to shift to a different culture or a different religion, And if you don't want to be part of that culture and part of that religion, well, eventually you'll become the minority. And at that point, the majority can do whatever the hell they want with you. And in the case of Islam, they will either, yes, they will either kill you for not converting to Islam, or they will enslave you. That is their beliefs. It is written in their book when the time of Muhammad came around. So for the British people, well, for the Europeans in general, if they want to save their cultures and their, their nations in general, they're gonna have to fight back. And unfortunately, as the Muslim Brotherhood says, to them, to the Muslim Brotherhood, this is a massive revolution. This is their revolutionary war. Like here in America, we fought to get away from Britain. We fought to be free of Britain's rule. Well, to the Muslim Brotherhood, they're turning the world into an Islamic globalist, in their words, paradise. It is a revolution to stop the imperialism of the West, to stop the values of the West, to stop the Western culture from existing. To them, it is a holy revolution. And I go back to Hitler. Folks, I know a lot of people compare Hitler to bad things, but as I said, he was just a blimp in Germany until he blew up. Right now, the Muslim Brotherhood might be a blimp with their other organizations, terrorist organizations, and allies, but if they go unchecked, they can blow up, and they could foresee the power to complete their goals, especially if, like here in America and in Europe, if we don't stop fighting each other. We may disagree on many things. Look, when I was younger, before I joined the Army, I was actually a very huge Democrat. Yeah, I thought Republicans were the fucking devil. I truly did. I thought they were heartless. I thought they were just cruel and very racist. But when I joined the Army and I got deployed and I've been to different locations around the world and this nation, my viewpoints changed. And when I came back and I heard what the left is talking about, I just went, God damn, these people are insane. They don't know nothing. Because, as I said earlier, the global left seems to think that if we tear down every nation, their history, their borders, their language, everything, that everybody will grab hands, sing Kumbaya, and live in this glorious multicultural religion, planet thing. I'm not even sure anymore. But the reality is, you'll have organizations like the Muslim Brotherhood and their allies. They will use that to their advantage, as they are right now, to gain even more political power. So even though the left might sit there and go, but wait, we were your allies, we protected you, we worked with you, Muslim Brotherhoods will be like, yes, you did. And we will remember you because you allowed us to gain in power. But now we don't need you anymore because we are strong enough. So now you must obey us. Because I will use Afghanistan. I might have talked about this before, but believe it or not, Afghanistan wasn't always the way it is. If you look at pictures of Afghanistan in the 1950s and such, it was actually, it almost looked like a Western civilization. And Afghanistan used to be a very huge Hindu nation, too. But after the collapse of the Muslim Brotherhood, they moved to Afghanistan, they gained political power, they started reverting Afghanistan to what they are. They drove the Hindus out, destroyed many Hindu statues and icons, and then now we have what Afghanistan is today. It's not what it used to be, and honestly, that should serve as a lesson of what can happen to the West if we don't stop this. As again, I'm not fear-mongering. I'm not trying to spread hate. I'm trying to spread awareness. I'm a small channel, alright? I got 10 subscribers. Thank you. I appreciate all of you, by the way. But share this video. Share the video that I'm going to link in the description. As I said, this, hopefully it won't blow up to nothing. But at the way it's looking right now, we could be looking at another world war, in my opinion, because I honestly believe that if it gets bad enough, and if the governments fail to do anything, there will be people who will just, they will have enough of it, and they will rise up and they will fight. I hope it doesn't come to that. The world doesn't need another world war, but if these organizations continue to grow in power, and the left continues to go down this radicalization craziness, I just don't see any alternative. For the West to survive, at this point, we're gonna have to fight for it. Because if we don't, we'll just become a blimp in history, and we may be forgotten. Folks, take this as you will. You know, I'm just an old soldier. You know, I've been to many places around the world. I've been many places across this great nation, and I've seen many things. And I've never seen something as crazy as what's going on right now. As that, I'm not trying to radicalize anyone here. But the reality of the matter is, and if you look at human history on how things have happened, it's leading up to a giant global catastrophe. And especially with the beliefs of the Muslim Brotherhood, because as I said, in their own words, this is a revolution, and it is the best revolution. So, I'm not saying we have to fire first, but if it comes down to it, we're gonna have to fight. And you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm okay fighting for my nation, at least on her soil. So, until next time, everybody, take care.